Exploitation Podcast Network.
Well, what are you going to do with your tickets now, hotshot?
You can have them.
Is that bribery?
Hey guys, welcome back to the Blood and Black Rum podcast. I'm Ryan from the moonsdeadworld.net and cultsploitation.com, and I'm joined by my co-host Martin.
How's it going?
And today we're moving into Remakeoween. Remakeoween! It is the Halloween series that we're doing this year. If you remember last year, we did Saw. It was a trying time.
All 7 films.
Yeah, we did all 7 films for him. And actually, speaking of that, before we get into our episode today, I did talk to another podcast.
I thought you were going to talk about. I thought you were going to say like somebody on this Jigsaw production.
No.
Giving us some more clout. Like I talked to the.
Definitely not. No. No, I talked to another podcast. They're also doing the Saw series as a whole, and I was like,
"Good luck."
Yeah, I said, "Oh, we did that last year. That was very difficult. That was tough." And they pretty much agreed because they've gotten through like the first 3 or 4, and
they're losing track.
They definitely are having. It's a struggle for them to get through the rest of them.
Well,
for sure.
Are they fans of the Saw films, or?
I think they're. I think so. I mean, I think that they're sort of fans of it. I would say that they probably have done. They probably like the first couple, I'm assuming. And then like us, especially me, how I'd watched all of them. But when I was doing the show, I didn't really remember like 5 through 7.
Well,
you're in the same situation now.
Well, no, I was going to say, because it's been a year. And as we were watching today's movie, I asked you, I'm like, it'll link into our review. But I was asking like, man, like, we were just talking about like, so what happened in like, okay, I remember what happened in Saw 1 and Saw 2.
Yeah.
And Saw 3.
But
what happened like yeah.
once you get past those, you're like, not very memorable after that. Looks like they're up to Saw 4 for their 4th episode. And so they're really hitting that barrier. I'm assuming, they're getting to the point where they're really getting frustrated with the whole series. But I just want to throw a shout out real quick to them. They're a horrible podcast. That's tough to say actually. I commend them when they say that on the show because it's tough to get out. But
good wordplay though.
Yeah, that's true. They're a horrible podcast, and they're currently covering the Saw series. They're new on the scene. So go check them out. Give them a shot. But other than that, as I was saying before that, we did the Saw series last year. We didn't really want to go with a full series this year. That's too much, and it makes it a slog for Halloween. You want to have some fun for Halloween. You don't want to be like pushing yourself to the limits the whole time, which I mean that can be fun too. But we're not doing a series this year. We're doing Remakeoween. It's a series of remakes for popular films,
which could very well just be as taxing.
It could be. It's just,
who knows?
And I think we have some on the horizon that aren't going to be as taxing, or hopefully won't be as taxing. So that's kind of a plus. But we do also have a lot of really bad remakes that we have on the horizon, and the one that we're doing tonight, which is just a pretty bad 2000s horror film, just like some of the Saw films, is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake from 2003. You
know how you can tell the two different apart? Chainsaw is one word in this title. It's 2 words in the original.
That's true. Yeah, they in the original that's just wrong. Why? Why would they do that?
Why are you saying why?
Instead
of why.
In this one they do though. They combine. Well, they spell chainsaw correctly, I should say. In this, it's almost It is a remake. It's definitely a remake. But at the same time, they kind of treat it as like a sequel sort of thing, like a rehash.
A retell. Well, yeah, retelling.
Retelling.
The opening premise is, you know,
yeah,
the way they set the film up is very much akin to, like it's going to be like a sequel or lead to a sequel.
Yeah, they definitely take a lot of the ideas of the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, like how the setup was kind of almost like newsy, almost like a documentary style thing,
and then in 2000s-ify it.
Yeah, basically. We're talking about a 2000s film that tries to emulate 1970s, and it doesn't do it very well, to say the least.
No.
You know, I don't want to get into it in the introduction too much, but yeah, it's certainly of the time for the 2000s where they would give a time period, but then really not give a shit about the actual. It would be like, well, we're going to set this in 1980, but none of the sets, props, costuming, none of it actually looks like it's from the 80s. We just wanted the appeal of it being in the 80s. It's the same situation for this, in that they wanted it set in the 70s because that's when the original is, but they don't do any of the work to actually make it that way. And that's kind of this is the crux of this movie. They want things and they don't do the work to get them.
Just like any other Michael Bay production.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit. Michael Bay definitely has he has a following for sure. And then he also has his gigantic detractors. So where do you stand on that?
Giant detractor.
So you're not in line to see the new Transformers movies when they come out?
No, I've only seen the first one. That was like against my will.
Any Michael Bay films that you enjoy?
One, and it's a slight enjoyment, and that's The Rock. And that's only because of Sean Connery.
And honestly, that was like early Michael Bay. So it's a lot different than...
No, because it's not a lot different. Bad Boys, The Rock, Armageddon, those are all...
I mean,
those are all like fucking Michael Bay.
Well, they definitely have their like summer blockbuster style feels to them. Not like I'm thinking Armageddon. Just taking that quickly, for example.
3 hours.
3 hour epic should be kind of like emotional. The world is going to end if these men don't stop this asteroid from plummeting to the earth. And he does work in like that emotional aspect, but like pulling the heartstrings.
It's ruined by Aerosmith.
And it's also very like, I get like cliched in the way that it's done. It's like, this man's gonna die and he's being a hero, and there's no like nuance to it.
And just think about too, is when you think about Armageddon, like just think Ben Affleck, my God. What a showcase for him of showing him that he doesn't care in that film.
Yeah.
It's like early Ben Affleck career is like such like so full of peaks and valleys. Some things he's great in early in his career, like Good Will Hunting, Dogma, even his like little bit part in Mallrats.
Yeah,
he's fucking hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
Armageddon, don't care. I'm an up and coming star. Yeah, I'm gonna squander this. Go back to a Kevin Smith film, care a little, and then get another big role.
All this talk about Michael Bay just because the production on the Texas Chainsaw Massacre does feel a lot like a Michael Bay film.
Minus the explosions.
Kind of would have been out of place for a Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I can't imagine. The only thing I could see is like there's the meat factory. If they accidentally set the meat factory on fire, not realizing there's like fucking gasoline in the back or something. Like there's a whole trough of gasoline in the back of this. They were like saving it up for a big bonfire. Beef jerky cook-off.
Like stereotypical like video game red barrels. Just like scattered all around. Like, hey, if you
shoot the red barrel. Yeah.
What's your favorite Michael Bay film? Do you have one that you enjoy?
No, not really. I used to think I was pretty cool watching Bad Boys on like CBS when they would air it. Like they used to do like movies of the night, and I remember watching Bad Boys, and there was and this was when I was quite young. There was this they always used to have the warning at the beginning of the movie saying like, this movie has violent content, viewer discretion advised. And I remember watching Bad Boys, and then I was just kind of bragging to everybody afterwards, being like, yeah, I watched that movie. Said viewer discretion advised, but I watched it. And that's pretty much all I remember about Michael Bay films. I don't like Armageddon. It's way too long. I never saw.
Such a slog.
He did Pearl Harbor, right?
Yeah,
I never watched Pearl Harbor.
Miserable. Absolutely miserable.
I saw the first Transformers. Wasn't really impressed, so I didn't even. It was on a bus trip, so they were airing Transformers 1 and 2. This is probably one of the most miserable bus trips you could be on. But I watched the first one, and then I tuned out for the second one. And that's pretty much it. I mean, other than that, I can't think of a Michael Bay film that I was really like struck by. And then pretty much any part of his producing on like horror films and remakes, like we talked about Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and then Friday the 13th in 2009, the remake. Neither of them I really like.
Nightmare.
Yeah,
Nightmare.
And Nightmare. I don't like any of them, and I know that some people have a soft spot for Friday the 13th just because it is like really ridiculous in those like Friday the 13th sequel type ways. But it's not really for me. I mean, I don't love any new Jasons really. So that he didn't hit me there either. Didn't get me with that one. But as we'll talk about in Texas Chainsaw Massacre, there's definitely a lot of flaws to the way that this film goes about trying to create homage to the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and really where it struggles to understand what made that original one fun rather than just kind of like going through the motions.
It's amazing how remakes can literally take, it's not just this film, but it's literally amazing, as we'll see throughout this next 2 months, how remakes can take the simplest ideas and follow all of the same beats, and on every single beat, fuck it up.
Yeah.
It's like that kid who's playing Guitar Hero on easy and is literally missing every like single like shred, like that. It's literally right there. Come on, this isn't hard. What are you doing?
Well, maybe they don't have rhythm, and I think that's the case with Texas Chainsaw Massacre. If you're talking about music standpoint, it just lacks the rhythm that it needs to succeed. So, let's take a break, and we'll come back. We don't have a beer this week, so we're gonna come back and we're gonna get right into it for Remakeoween.
We're slacking.
Yeah, we're slacking. I have a lot of surplus beer, so trying to finish that up before. And also, strangely enough, there's not a lot of Oktoberfests around that I've seen. We don't have a high volume of them yet. So the norm,
because we're just getting into September.
I know, but the normies are around, like Sam Adams Oktoberfest, Saranac's Oktoberfest. But other than that, I haven't seen a whole bunch of them. So I know like Goose Island is out now. I've seen Brooklyn's Oktoberfest, which I think we did do on this before. And a couple others, but nothing that's like really struck my fancy that I wanted to cover for the show. So
I haven't been to the store.
I mean, I'm just waiting. I'm holding out for the right Oktoberfest. So that's why we don't have anything this week. But stay tuned. We'll be right back with our talk about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2003.
Ever wonder what happened to the actor from the 80s movie that you love? What about the director of the 70s splatter film that turned your stomach? Or how about the model that starred in your favorite MTV video? I'd like to invite you to join me, Sean Riley, the host of Second Acts podcast, on the first of each month as we check in with some of the most memorable faces you've forgotten to see what's going on in the second acts of their lives. You can check out Second Acts podcast on your favorite podcast app as well as on YouTube. Also, be sure to check out our Facebook page for bonus content as well as ways to interact with the show. F. Scott Fitzgerald once wrote, "There are no second acts in American lives, but there are on Second Acts Podcast."
All right, guys, we're back for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre from 2003. The remake, obviously, because we did the original last week. And
Listen to that episode.
That's right. We're kind of we're moving into the remake territory, and it's fresh on our minds. So that may be good or bad for us to have watched the original and then move right into the remake, because then we see everything that the original did really well. And we talked about the flaws of the original as well. I mean, we did talk about, how sometimes the film is a little bit long-winded in parts. How Tobe Hooper is kind of hesitant to cut and edit the film a little bit more, edit it down. There's a lot of screaming in that film. There's the family scene, the dinner scene at the end of the film, a little over long. So we did talk about the flaws, and we didn't have a lot of talk about like all of the flaws, but definitely we weren't just totally praising it either. So, but I think that we do see when we move into the remake that this film certainly doesn't have first of all, it doesn't have the grindhouse exploitation feel to it at all.
It has a Saw feel.
Right. It's definitely reminiscent of the 2000s remakes that were remakes in name and subject alone, but not really trying to imitate like the actual feel, the atmosphere of those films.
No, they were going more for the torture porn type of vibe.
I think that when we talk about, Texas Chainsaw Massacre was banned. In the original was banned in certain places. And it was considered nasty and exploitative.
When you watch it now, it's
all kinds of things.
Tame as hell. The only like really brutal parts is like, just like the sickening thuds that you see from like Leatherface bashing a couple people over the head with a hammer.
When we talk about 2003's Texas Chainsaw Massacre, it's much more violent. It's way gorier. But at the same time, does it really capture the tone of the original?
No.
I feel like one thing that we really praised, and I still think is great about the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I think I'm just going to call it TCM at this point, because it's really, really annoying to...
Turner Classic Movies.
Yeah, really annoying to kind of spell it out every time. The one thing that TCM did really well is have that 70s grindhouse exploitative look to it.
And which I said, like, that film made during its time. It is perfect. It's at the right moment.
Mm-hmm.
Like that, the theme and what they were going for, and just how it fits within like the time period in cinema.
It captured that really well.
Yeah, it fits incredibly well.
You can see the remake trying to imitate that a little bit towards the beginning of the film, when you have the kind of gritty, filtery opening that's shot like a documentary.
But it doesn't work as well because it's actual like a Blair Witch Project.
Yeah, found footage style.
Found footage, Rescue 911-esque type fucking opening, where the original was like, the still shots and works more effective. It's like the same thing with like the ending to the original Night of the Living Dead. What makes it so effective is the credits are totally quiet except, the dialogue, and it's just still shots of what's, the aftermath of the film.
Grisly crime scene style.
And it makes, works very well. If they were to do that today, it would be like a found footage type thing of like, like actually showing them like drag the body to like, the fire and all that stuff. And it just wouldn't be nearly as effective.
I think what you get though from the beginning, from this opening of TCM 2003, is the film really trying to bank on the original, for one thing, trying to capture that homage, and then also attempting to kind of bank on the found footage aspect of like Blair Witch Project, which didn't release too far behind this. It was 99, so not too far. And then also trying to kind of force that atmosphere in rather than actually being able to accomplish it. So I think that the film really tries to make the viewer feel like it's based on historical fact. Something that the original TCM did to an extent, but it never really, I mean, it said it was loosely based on true events. And then it kind of followed up with that by really having a lot to do with the original Ed Gein subject matter about, how Ed Gein would steal from graveyards, steal corpses from graveyards and create furniture out of the dead bodies and things like that. It really did make a point to show that in the original TCM. TCM 2003, on the other hand, wants to use that historical aspect to the film and then not really bring it into the film at all. Even like the Ed Gein parts are lost here. We do get to see a little bit more of Leatherface actually putting on the face of his victims. They make it a point to kind of show that at one point when Jessica Biel's character sees her boyfriend's face on Leatherface's face, for lack of better terminology there. But I don't think that they did a good job of documenting anything to do with Ed Gein, of capturing the family dynamic that was so prevalent in the original, or even giving Leatherface a character here.
No, I agree. I mean, though I would say Leatherface compared to like a lot of other famous serial killers like Michael Myers and, Freddy and Jason, he's got the least personality out of them all. At least in my opinion. Yeah. Like the only really like memorable things about him in the first film is like he's just a big hulking brute, makes squealing noises constantly, like constantly having like high pitched like grunts, like like he's the guy in Deliverance saying like squeal like a piggy, and then he runs around with a chainsaw. He doesn't have like as much.
I think that they managed to give him a personality though, in that you kind of feel like he's a childlike figure.
That he's a, but at the same time, though I don't think he's like that, there's not much to him that makes him like memorable. I think more it's just his overall presence and then the weapon itself, is what makes him a memorable character in slasher films. But in this case with TCM 2003, there's nothing memorable about him. Nothing about Leatherface in this film that sticks out at all.
No, I think
he's literally just a hulking mass with a chainsaw that's running around with a creeper / Michael Myers mask. That's what his mask in this doesn't look like what Leatherface looked like in the original. It looks like they just took hey, let's do the Halloween mask.
Well, I guess what I would say is that I think the Leatherface mask in this film looks more like a mask, in that it's not really supposed to. In the original, you're supposed to see that Leatherface is kind of cobbled together a face because he doesn't like his disfigured face underneath. And so it looks very homemade. It looks very, like rough around the edges. And in here, you kind of have the perfection of like a good
Hollywood
big
makeup.
Budget. You know what I mean? Of now he's been able to craft like this excellently horrific looking face that doesn't really look like a homemade patched together face, but more so like he was really going for this look. And I don't think it works that well to show like the backwoods quality of him and his DIY aesthetic. But yeah, I think that this Leatherface doesn't really have a presence as much in here as he does in the original TCM 2, because I think that this film really goes for the whole family dynamic. It really wants almost a Hills Have Eyes like quality to it.
This is before the remake.
This is before the Hills Have Eyes remake, but it is using the family portion from the original film and then going a step further. Except this step isn't as interesting. And the film spends a lot of time on the family and on people not who are not Leatherface, who are also involved in our protagonist's capture and torture. I don't know how I feel about that. I think that
they add more family member. They add like an entire fucking
clan.
You know, ma, grandma, sister, brother, daddy, Leatherface, baby,
some baby, some other disfigured kid,
cousin, second cousin, cousin's cousin. It's totally fucking stupid.
I think some of those moments work. I like Arlie Ermy in general. I think he's just a fun guy, and he does do a good job with the sheriff in this film. It's definitely like they asked him to do your Full Metal Jacket impression, but just
I'm sure that's most of his roles.
Just
after Full Metal Jacket, his entire career has just become all right. Just
go more demented with it.
Just do crazy shit.
Yeah, so you were saying, do you think that a lot of his role was written? Or do you think it was just like, Arlie Ermy just kind of do what...
No, it was written. But, I mean, it was written to be like, what would Arlie, I guarantee the role was written with Arlie Ermy in mind. Like,
or somewhat similar, yeah.
Because it's not like... Because in Full Metal Jacket, Cooper couldn't write that shit. That was so off the cuff and so wildly insane yet funny at the same time. That it had to be like improvised, which it was. All his lines in Full Metal Jacket were improvised. And this, you can tell it's like it was written to be like, this is like something that he might say, or something that he might do.
Because it's never as wild or off the cuff or like surprising as what you would have gotten from Arlie Ermy in Full Metal Jacket. It's more so like someone was trying to write Full Metal Jacket, and they came up with something that was vulgar, but not necessarily entertaining. And I think Arlie Ermy does what he can with it. Like when he's doing his whole bit, when they don't really know that he's a bad sheriff at this point, and he kind of shows up as the sheriff. He's wrapping the body of the suicide hitchhiker in Reynolds wrap, and they're just going along with it.
I know,
it's so amazing. And I think that's a combination of, wow, look at how stupid these characters are, which it can be a good thing because now we're kind of actively rooting for Leatherface and the rest of them to be mutilating them.
By this point, these characters are such assholes.
Yeah. I think it works though.
It's great. It would have been great if there's a line like, why are you wrapping him in like Reynolds wrap? Like budget cuts. We don't have. This is a small town, boy. We don't have money for body bags.
That's what I love about that scene, though. I don't even know if it's intentional, but it's just like everybody is so like quote unquote frightened that they're just willing to go along with it. Like, oh, you're not gonna like test anything. You're not gonna like make this a crime scene. Not gonna take any pictures. You're gonna allow our guy to touch the body and like fiddle around with it while you're wrapping her.
No, they're too worried about their weed.
Yeah, that's
because it's the 70s, man.
So stupid. But I do love that because it just comes off as a wildly absurd moment where everybody's just going along with it. Oh, in this town, I guess they wrap their bodies up in saran wrap and throw them in the back of the police car. Oh, I guess the police just meet you in a random location that you've never been to before, asking you to go to fucking
the old
windmill.
Mill.
And just meet them there. Drive around with a big hole in your back windshield and a body in the back.
That's the one that pisses me off because there's like literally 30 minutes of this film dedicated to like the body being in the car. Now what happens is that like in the original they pick up a hitchhiker, but instead of the hitchhiker being one of the demented members of the family, it's a girl who has survived the trauma of being captured by them, but is so traumatized she pulls a gun out of her vagina and then shoots herself in the head. Because they're heading towards the direction of the...
Their camp, basically.
Of their
clan.
Where they're, like, stationed. And so she just can't deal with that. And because it's a horror film, they have to play the pronoun game of, I'm not going there. Where? There. Why? Because it's bad. There. You know, instead of being like, you know, I know she's, you know, traumatized and frightened, but instead of saying something sensible, like, we can't go there. Why? Because that's where I was coming from. Even though that makes no sense.
There's a giant guy with a chainsaw.
Yeah. Even though that makes no sense because she was walking the direction they were going.
Yep.
So, you know.
She got turned around.
Yeah. It's, you know, it's a big mystic loop, but.
Yeah.
So this girl commits suicide in their van, and our heroes are on their way to a Lynyrd Skynyrd concert after going to Mexico to pick up 2 pounds of marijuana. And they're more concerned about, we should just leave the body. You can't have the cops catch us with weed. It's like, someone's going to eventually stop you if you get out of buttfuck nowhere and run into more sensible cops. Like, hey, you got blood splattered all over your back windshield. The dead body remains in your back seat and a giant gunshot through your back window. What's up with that?
Yeah, they're not really thinking sensibly there, if that's the main goal. But I mean,
it's just so annoying because it's literally. Why do they have to? Why is that the setup for this? Yeah. Why couldn't you stick to the original of Grandpa died, and so we're going to visit his, you know, tombstone and his house?
Well, I mean, yeah, either that or just have them driving through and they break down or something,
or run into a hitchhiker.
Yeah, something like that.
You don't need an exact reason why they're there, but the fact they make it like so stereotypical, like, well, it's in the 70s. What are these kids going to be doing? They're going to be fucking smoking dope and going to see Skynyrd, 'cause they're country kids. They're wearing trucker hats and cowboy hats and smoking doobies.
I think it's an attempt to, like, encapsulate that idea from the 70s, from some of those movies from like the 70s and 80s, which is what they were doing. They were off on their own. They were smoking pot and they were getting into trouble. And that's the moral of the story. Is
they weren't going to fucking seeing Skynyrd, though.
Don't do that. Yeah, I mean, I think in a way that it works, and it was an attempt to like pay homage to some of the other horror films of the time. But at the same time, you're right. Why go through all the time in the length of trying to explain why someone would commit suicide, and then these teens would just go along with it by elongating how they could report this to the police? Because at this time, you know, if the police aren't willing to meet you, you just fucking stay at that restaurant / convenience store until they do.
Oh no, I'd go somewhere else, because that great barbecue pit stop had a pig's head in the window and flies all over it. That would have been your first sign, like, something ain't right here. Great barbecue, my ass.
Yeah.
But I can't appreciate the homage to, like, the idea of, like, look, I know slasher films, they always have, like, kids smoking dope and, you know, having sex, because it's like, ooh. I think that's a stupid premise for, like, you know.
Well, it was.
I know, but I mean, I understand it's part of the genre, but it's a stereotype and a premise and a theme that I don't really care for. Slashers don't like, if the killer doesn't really need an alternate motive for killing like that. Like, well, these people are gonna die because they have sex and all that. I think that's stupid. They're psychopaths. Just they don't like adding that subtext just because you want to show tits in the film.
They're urban legends, and they're mythology to ward off teens from doing that activity, because this will end up evenly happening to them if they do that.
You will get pregnant and you will die.
Yeah, basically.
But I don't. That's something I don't like of the genre, because like, I don't think.
And it doesn't really work today either. You know, it's not the same sort of.
Unless It Follows.
True, but I mean, it's not the same situation. And that, obviously, abstinence and those sorts of things, they don't work very well. So you can't really say you're going to have sex and then die.
Unless you're from the South.
Yeah. So it doesn't work in today's sense, but
No, my main point is one of the flaws of the original film, though this setup is not a bad setup, that they're going to visit, like, you know, their grandpa died, so they're driving through Texas and they're going to like the funeral and they run to the hitchhiker. It's not a bad setup. The problem with that is that it does go. That part is one of the parts that goes on too long. The whole them sitting in the car and talking, you know, to
the
hitchhiker, and like it comes across as creepy and eerie because he's demented and he cuts himself. But it does like it goes on a little too long just because they extend it by like just having like stupid lines in it, like oh, this guy's fucking crazy, you know?
Right.
But I mean, overall, the idea is sound and works. It's simple yet effective. Here, they're like, just like, well, how can we make this like a stereotypical slasher film? We'll just have, you know, they are in the original, like they had the subtext of sex is there. They want to have sex, but they're not. It's not overt though. It's not them like groping each other. Literally, in the opening of this is like you have two of them just literally fucking in the back. One kid smoking a joint, and it's like, "Hey, look, we're off to see Skinner! Yay!" You know.
If you didn't know it was Texas Chainsaw Massacre, you'd know something bad was going to happen.
Yeah,
it's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, you know they're all doomed for death.
And obviously, with them going to see Lynyrd Skynyrd, that's bad shit too, because that's rock, and rock's from the devil. I don't like the setup for sure.
And as I say, it's made even worse because when they pick up the girl who's a survivor instead of being part of the clan that's demented, that whole bit doesn't work and it's not effective. It's just done mainly for the shock and awe of like her shooting herself in the head.
I will say that when I first saw this film and that happened with the suicide, I did think it was pretty shocking, especially the zoom back through the head. That was kind of I remember at that time, which would have been the early 2000s, that was a big moment, and definitely hit during the big increase in torture porn films. So for that, I guess they succeeded. And this film did make a boatload of money, just simply because it attracted a lot of people who were really into the whole, this is going to be gory and this is going to be ultra violent in a way that the original TCM was not. More so, it was more visceral and thrilling because the things happen off screen, but you could imagine that would probably suck, you know. A chainsaw,
which I've said 1,000 times, is 1,000,000 times more effective than like showing it.
Yeah. But I mean, what do you think of the gore in this? Because it is, while, you know, a lot of the original part of TCM doesn't take place with violence and gore as the extremity, this film does put that right front and foremost for this film. You know, it wants the viewer to experience all of the gore and the violence. So what do you think about that for this film? Does it work? Is it unnecessary?
I mean, I'm fine with them. If the whole point of this remake is just to make a gorier version, I'm fine with it, just because it's going to attract a certain audience that, you know, it appeals to. It's not for me. But I don't really think the gore's that great in this film. I mean, outside, like you said, like I do think, though I think that suicide is totally unnecessary, contrived, and done for shock and awe, I do think the effect looks pretty cool. You know, from behind and you see the bullet go through and that, you know, head pop. Other than that, I don't really find any of the actual effects to be... They're not bad, but I wouldn't say they're not creepy, they're not scary, they're not visceral.
Yeah. I mean, I would say that this film needs them, though, because this does not have the tension that the original has.
Well, not only that, you don't like anyone in this film. At least in the original, there's a couple of the party that you're like, you know, you may not like, but you're like, you know, I don't hate them. In this film, it's like right off the bat, like, I don't like any of these assholes. They're all just sweaty.
Yeah, they are very sweaty.
Sweaty, miserable fucking pieces of crap.
You can imagine how good that van smells.
I know, and it takes like 45 minutes and then like driving around, like, for that and the body to tilt over from like, oh, it smells. It's like, it's 110 degrees out. What do you mean? I'm like, I was just about to say right before that part happened, they're like, oh god, it smells. Like, how is nobody like this, like being like, this is putrid. I can't go on in this thing anymore. This smells awful.
Yeah, that is surprising that they
movie should have came with scratch and sniff. Like,
oh, there you go.
You know, instead of like 3D glasses, like come see Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2003. It comes with a scratch and sniff card with your ticket.
Now that would have been something, because I think for the most part, besides like the gore and the chainsaw bits, the film is kind of boring. The film doesn't really have a lot going for it, especially in terms of tension. I mean, Arlie Ermey does what he can, but I don't know if it's enough, because a lot of those scenes, like you said, the car scene is really long. It takes them a long time to actually get to the place where Leatherface is. So that takes a long time. And then, excuse me, from there, you don't have a lot of chances with Leatherface. It's mostly them figuring out the people around them are like in on it. They all are working together. And I don't think any of it is really that fun or entertaining. I would expect this remake to try to be fun, first and foremost. Like this, it's meant to be over the top a little bit and go further than what TCM did, and it's just not. It's not as fun. They
play it way too straight.
Yeah, it's not fun. It's not scary. It just kind of does its thing, and I think what you said really makes sense. It's just very straightforward and very generic 2000s horror film.
They got their fucking saw filter in this film. You got that putrid green tint to half this film when it's shot inside and anything.
And I think that it's ugly too, and not in the same ugly that the original TCM was, because that was ugly on purpose. That was grimy and grungy.
And like I said, that's why the film benefits in being made in the period that it was made in. It totally, this 70s was able to capture, kind of like how Vigilante, like when's the heyday of Vigilante films? Like when we did our Death Wish series. 70s. Why? The tone, the style, the editing, things that were mainstays in 70s cinema at the time fit that, you know. Just like there's always certain certain genres that are always going to be kind of perfectly encapsulated into a certain time period. Spy films and westerns, like the 60s. Unless like you're thinking like early style westerns where they're more gung ho Americans, those spaghetti westerns, that'd be like more like 50s, but like, you know, spaghetti westerns and spy films. You think 60s, and like how that time period is able to encapsulate that perfectly. Same thing like a film like Texas Chainsaw Massacre fits perfectly within the subtext of the 70s.
Yeah, I think this one tries to imitate that. It tries to capture like the griminess of this setting, but I don't think it does a good job because it feels, for one, too sterile and too
contrived,
too new. It feels like a 2000s attempt at 1970s setting. It's not. It just doesn't have the grittiness that the original had, and it's to this film's detraction that it does that, because I think like some of the scenes that are set in the basement are just kind of they're
generic.
They're generic, and they have that greenish blue tint to them.
Water for no reason.
Water just running all over the place. Where is it coming from in this dry desert heat? I don't know.
They make sure to show you like in the original they showed you like the meat hooks and some of just like the slicing tools, and here they got like show like the formaldehyde and like, you know, everything.
Petroleum jelly.
Him shoving salt on a wound. Be like, I'm going to turn your leg into beef jerky.
Yeah, well, they got to make the beef jerky somehow.
stupid. By the way, why? Okay, in the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the meat packing plant has a purpose. It's where the family worked. It's part of why they have this. It's hinted at part of the reason to why they have this demented need to kill, because
it was their livelihood,
and it helped feed their sadisticness. Like Grandpa, was the best cow killer. He bashed them damn cows' heads upside the head with a hammer so good he did it better than everyone else. Here it's just there. Like, hey, in the meatpacking plant.
Yeah, they just run to it. Basically, they find it. Just out there.
They show it a few times, and at the end, Jessica Biel runs into it, and it's like, why are you running into that? You got, keep running to the next town over. Like, why are you running into, like...
Yeah, get out of get out of there.
Like, that makes no sense.
Get out of that
I was almost expecting, like, him to get, like, killed some way, and, like Terminator, like, him to get crushed in, like, something.
Oh, yeah.
Like, she's, like, running away, and he's, like, chasing, like, something, like, would crush or grind him up. Like,
he accidentally fell into the lava pit in the beef jerky factory.
Well, that's Terminator 2.
No, I know. I'm talking
about Terminator 1.
Yeah. No, none of that happens. I think...
But, so, that whole part is, so, like, to me, that whole part is pointless.
Yeah, it's just a way to try to generate tension by having a chase sequence, which... I am a huge... I do not like chase sequences for the hell of it, because they just stand to take up long periods of time in a film for no reason. Like, and this is true of the original TCM as well.
So then we complained about the chase.
Yeah,
the chase that goes on.
A chase that's like very circular and just loops around.
Might as well have the Benny Hill music play like.
It's the same thing for this, in that the chase does nothing. It doesn't really... nothing really occurs with it, except for Leatherface looking like an idiot.
For running into barbed wire, his own barbed wire.
He runs it, yeah.
And cutting himself with his chainsaw because he got tripped up in the barbed wire.
It makes him look like an idiot, but other than that, it doesn't really accomplish anything, and it just wastes a lot of time. It does, however, lead Jessica Biel's character through tons of sprinklers to get her white shirt wet, and also to give her a chance to meet up with Mike Vogel's character, who has been hanging on a meat hook. So, and then have her do some really stupid things, like try to lift him off of it.
After he's like, no, don't do it.
He's telling her, no, please, no, don't. And she's lifting him up on...
He's a thick man.
Yeah. I mean, he's like probably 200 and something pounds.
He's
hanging on a meat hook.
Trunk of a man.
And I don't see her lifting him off of the meat hook. So yeah, he's just kind of pleading with her, like, please stop. Please, please end this misery of me hanging on the meat hook and my inside shifting around as you like try to lift me up and down. Yeah. But I mean, that's pretty much all the chase scene does. But I guess while we're here, let's talk about that. Jessica Biel. The pride and joy of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2003.
What a wonderful ass.
I mean, to be honest with you, this film takes Shelley from the first film. Like, Shelley is obviously the final girl in that,
and sexes her up.
And sexes her up.
You like literally have like this. I can't remember which Color Me Bad was it. That was like, I wanna sex you up. It's literally like what Michael Bay was probably thinking he was doing the casting for that. As you said, like, okay, we got Jessica Biel comes out of wardrobe in like a blue shirt. No, she can't be wearing blue.
Yeah.
She's wearing a turtleneck. Come on, it's 110 out.
Yeah.
She's got to be wearing a really tight, short white top. That's what we need in this film.
And the white top's got to be tied up too. Yeah. Like it can't just be like a normal white top. She's got to have it as a belly shirt. Jessica Biel is definitely the focus here, and it's the Jessica Biel TNA show.
Yeah, because it's literally like several camera shots are dedicated just like tit shot or like ass shot.
Yeah, like
so it's literally like when you leave the film, it's like the great debate. It's like, what'd you like? Did you like her tits or did you like her ass? Which one do you like more?
There's no way that you could come out of this film and not think like that was intentional, because so many shots are unnecessarily shot from like the ground. Like the cameraman had to like crawl on the ground and like, is the butt the focal point in this? No? Okay, we'll move to where it is. And it just becomes almost a distraction the entire film, because it's like a tease. It's, because most films are going to have at least some nudity in it. There's one or two people who are like, okay, well, you're going to be our nude scenes in this film. But the Texas Chainsaw Massacre does not have that as part of its plotting, so it has to go further and just have a constant tease there. And
like maybe you will see. There's nipple, but as you said, it's shadowed.
Yeah, artistically shadowed, because they can have they can have a white T-shirt and it can be wet as can be, but they have to like artistically shadow how much you see of it. And I guess thinking about that, they did a great job. They did a great job of teasing for nearly 100 minutes. And then the viewer comes away thinking like, well, I didn't see anything. So I've got to go back to Jack Frost. The original Jessica Biel.
I was say starring Michael Keaton.
Yeah, no, the other one. The original Jessica Biel film. But she is the focal point. And for no good reason, because she really isn't that good of an actress in this.
No, she's not.
I mean, you can see that immediately.
She's not a good actress, period.
You can see that immediately, like in the car, when she's like, oh, Kemper. Very forced, like being mad at him. Like,
When are you going to put a ring on this finger?
You're an asshole, Kemper.
How much do you love me? This much? This much? I wish if I knew being a Hollywood screenwriter was that easy, I would sign up for my, Screenwriters Guild card and be like, I can do this too. I can write an hour and a half movie where half the lines like, you're an asshole, and then just shouting someone's name.
I want to smoke pot.
Yeah. I can't believe you got pot.
Kemper.
I know, and she's mad because they smuggled 2 pounds of pot in a piñata. And she's like, we didn't go to Mexico so you guys could buy weed. What the fuck was she doing when they were like buying like weed down there? Like
2 pounds of weed she didn't know.
I know.
She was...
she didn't smell it? It's not like it has to be burning for you to be able to smell it.
Yeah. I mean, it was right there in the back seat. She was probably out finding her white top and her very tight jeans that probably no one in the 70s wore like that. That's the thing that really bugs me about the film too, is the wardrobe is so totally
2000s to 570s
inconsistent with like how anybody would have dressed. All they had to do was take a look back at TCM, the original, and say like, oh, okay, so that's how they were dressing in that one. Like very, high cut shirts and midriff jeans. Like, and the jeans were pretty high cut, bell bottoms. Obviously, in the first one, original, Shelley is wearing very clear bell bottoms, and that it looks very authentic because it was. But in this film, like, it just basically looks like they said, come with your 2000s gear and we'll try to make it look 70s. And we'll do the best we can. They didn't do a very good job.
No, it did.
It's very anachronistic to the time period. The only thing they really got right is like having a bomber van.
I could see them like if they shot like at a normal convenience store, like they'd kind of mock it up to look 70s, but in the background you'd clearly see like a modern day like Pepsi sign or something, because they'd be too lazy to be like, oh, we can't. We couldn't get permission from the owner to. Yeah,
all of the settings are very they don't have like a time period to them. Even like the convenience store is just kind of made to look like a shitty convenience store, not like a 70s shitty convenience store. But that's one thing that bugs me, because you can just see like there wasn't really a lot of thought put into it. It was just kind of like, let's slap the 1973 year on here and go with it. It's just...
Well, not only that, we said too, like, and I alluded to this earlier, like, half the house, like, scene and, like, the meat packing plant, too, is, like, they literally saw 2.
Saw 3. Saw 3.
Would that have been out by then?
I don't know. But it looks like that's what
The
it looks
Saw
like.
3 set, like, I mean, that's what it looks like. But I said, like, or like,
I don't know if it was out at that time.
I don't think it was. No,
not till 2006.
So maybe
so even Saw 2 isn't out till 2005. So we could say that Saw 3 stole it from Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah, but it fits. Even though it came later, it fits with what Saw was going for at that point. This is just like literally like, oh, it's yay. It looks bad. It looks very bad and very bland.
I agree. It is. It's like it definitely doesn't have the tension or the scares that the original had. It just doesn't reach that level. And I guess we can do rating because I don't have a lot more to say about this film besides what we did, what we captured, because it's very generic, it's very bland. It's overly long at almost like an hour and 40 minutes. It's overly long in the final moments where it incorporates the family are just unnecessary, I think. So, do you want to do a rating?
Sure.
Out of 10, I guess we'll do out of 10 pig heads because that's a prominent feature.
Wow, what a Saw thing.
Yeah, right? I know. Out of 10 pig heads, what would you give the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake?
4. I'll give it a 4 out of 10.
That's pretty low, but I think that's probably... It makes sense.
This is a boring, long in the tooth, shallow, totally misses the beats and the points of the original. And I don't even really consider myself that big of a fan of the original. I mean, I can see why it's iconic and, what it has done for slasher films and exploitation films. I don't really think it's that great of a film. I can't remember if I gave it a 6 or a 7 last week. It's not much separating. It's, one's like an above average and one's a fine film. So it's, somewhere in between here. This is not. This totally misses the mark. It's not entertaining as a slasher film. It's not entertaining as a horror film. It totally misses all the beats and the points of the original. And which makes this a remake that is redundant. And that's why remakes, for the most part, are not something that I like. Because the worst thing a remake can be is redundant. And this movie is redundant. There's no point. If this is what they were going to do, to try to remake and retell this iconic story for a new generation, then this movie has failed. It serves no purpose. Just watch the fucking original.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that you're right. If you want a remake, you really want it to have something of a purpose, either as an homage to it. You realize your fans really like the original and you wanted to try to do something new with it, or at least have it be an interesting and different take on that film. And this one does neither. It's very generic. If you didn't have Texas Chainsaw Massacre as the title, it could have been any other slasher film from the 2000s, and it could have just been anything.
Could have been Hostile.
Yeah,
could have been a Saw. This could be like a Saw movie. Could be any of those films.
There's nothing really that makes it stand out as Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
They have that same it has that music video style editing. The same just stupid premise.
And as we said, the Leatherface mask doesn't even really look like Leatherface that much. So they're not. It's not even like that's like the iconic look of him.
And not only that, they have the whole him dancing type thing, and it's not. It comes off nowhere near as effective at the end because he's fucking armless.
That's true.
Because Jessica Biel somehow manages to chop one of his arms off with a
butcher,
a meat cleaver. That part just comes off just totally forced and tacked on.
In the finale is really just stupid because they leave this as an unsolved case because
two cops went down to investigate, and they were filming it, and then they were attacked by Leatherface. And this is the only shot we have of Thomas Welker or whatever, Welke, whatever. Who the fuck cares? That's the correct answer. No one cares. Also known as Leatherface. And the movie just ends, and it plays like that ominous, like, literally, as I told you, this movie should have ended with, like Dawn of the Dead's remake did a year later with fucking Drowning Pool, like, get down, like, wah! That's, like, how fucking cliche it is. And it's, like I told you, like, it's stupid. Like, oh, so these two cops died because they couldn't seal the crime scene because Leatherface was lurking around. So they didn't send a SWAT team down to, oh, there's this fucking crazy ape man running around. Let's send a van full of 30 guys in body armor, riot gear, and automatic M16 rifle. No, it's just unsolved. We're not going there.
They were like, fuck that.
Yeah, can't be bothered.
Not going.
Which then leads to the like, how'd they get that footage of what happened? Did Leatherface mail it to them? Like, you guys might want this. Like, how did they recover the bodies too? Did they sneak in there with a couple of morticians while Leatherface was out, like, taking a piss?
I don't know.
That's stupid.
Yeah, the documentary aspect of it is very poorly done and doesn't really make a whole lot of sense.
And I think it's almost there because it's trying to set up like a potential sequel. Because it's like 30 years ago this happened. So like now it's like it's been 30 years later.
I guess.
But then like, okay, so 60-year-old Leatherface is going to be...
With his cyborg arm.
Cyborg arm and like a wheelchair, like going to be...
Well, he's been breeding a new Leatherface.
So why are they capturing... This is the thing I don't understand either. Why are they capturing babies?
Just because.
Why is Anne Heche knockoff, like, taking babies?
She feels like it. They want to breed... Like I said, they want to create new crazies. That's all.
Join the family?
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense.
Because they need a new sheriff after Arlie Ermey dies too.
Well, they had the baby before that. They didn't know he was gonna die.
No, I'm just kidding. But I was saying like in future they know he's gonna die, so we need to breed a new sheriff. No, I don't know. It doesn't. It's again that's kind of like the Hills Have Eyes sort of thing. Like they were stealing from that too, cribbing from that.
All this movie did was like make Rob Zombie to inspire him to make shitty movies.
Yeah, that's true. I would give this a 4 as well. I agree with pretty much everything you said. It's not very entertaining. I didn't really have that much fun with it. It's kind of like when we did our 90s month. And
revisiting those films
in terms of like, it's kind of boring. Not much happened, and it kind of was replacing.
This isn't as bad. I mean, this is like those make. I mean, this makes those like I Know What You Did Last Summer seem kind of fun.
True.
Like at least those have like a little bit of like even though they take themselves seriously, like when we did those films, Urban Legend was intentionally campy. That's why it was the best of the bunch. But even like I Know What You Did Last Summer is soulless and not fun of a film that is because Freddie Prinze Jr. is in it. At least it's more fun than this film.
Yeah, that has some. I would say you said soulless, but that has more soul than this one does.
I know. That's why I purposely said that one because that out of all of them, that was like the most totally.
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll see. Like when we do these 2000 remakes, a lot of them are going to feel very similar in that like soulless, pumped out because of the money sort of thing. So
new line, wanted that money.
Yep, pretty much. And that's kind of why a lot of people now are so hesitant about any sort of remake because of all of these very soulless, life-sucking remakes that came out in the early to late 2000s. Just didn't do a lot for the horror community. So, all right. So next week we continue Remakeoween with, and this is a little bit of a weird one, because it is technically a remake of the TV movie from the 90s.
I hope Tim Curry has a cameo.
Well, I guess we'll see. I'm getting a lot of good reviews, so I'm excited to see it. I think it has like a 97% on Rotten Tomatoes right now with like 39 reviews in. So yeah, so pretty exciting. So that is going to be up next for us next week. We're going to see that probably Monday or Tuesday of this week or of this coming week, and we'll have the show up for you. So stay tuned for that. And then we've got Remakeoween going on all of September and October. So make sure you tune in for all of the crazy remakes that we're covering. It's going to be a lot of fun for you guys as listeners, and kind of a crap fest for us as the watchers and reviewers. But we do have a couple of good ones on tap as well, which hopefully it will be one of them. So
I don't have the time really for it, but I do have to rewatch the original because I haven't seen it in so fucking long. I could not really tell you.
You don't have the time to go back and watch that 4-hour epic?
No, not really.
6 hours or however long it is. It's something like that.
It's like 4 hours.
Yeah. I don't know. You need to make time.
So do you. I imagine you don't remember it either.
No, I have watched some of it just recently, actually. Some of it. It was on TV, I think. I watched some of it, but yeah, hopefully it'll be a good time. And we'll try to talk a little bit about the other.
I will try to watch. I will try to watch it because, like I said,
or even just recaps.
Because, like I said, it's been so long. I mean, I know the general premise, but it's been so long since I've seen it. I really could be asked. Like, if you told me to mention certain specifics, I wouldn't be able to at all.
Well, it should be fun to see that next week. So stay tuned with us for Remakeoween. We're going to be going on for 2 months. It's going to be a great time. You can check us out on Facebook, facebook.com/Blood and Black Rum Podcast. We're on Twitter at Blood and Black Rum. We have an email, bloodandblackrumpodcast@gmail.com. You can write to us, tell us what you think about the show. Find us on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, pretty much every other app that you can think of that you can listen to podcasts on. Leave us a nice review and rating. And we have a Patreon page, patreon.com/Blood and Black Rum Podcast. You can donate to us there. It's a monthly donation, so just keep that in mind. It will come out every month. Other than that, check us out on our podcast network, Cultsploitation Podcast Network, at cultsploitation.com. And, let us know what you think. And if you would like to be a part of the Cultsploitation Podcast Network, let us know as well. We can get you in. Thank you for listening. We hope to see you back next time for a new episode of our Remakeoween series with It. So keep on listening, and we'll see you next week.
Take care.